Glasgow's underworld has always carried a reputation for ruthless violence, but the story of Stephen Bonzo Daniel still sent shockwaves across Scotland. Once considered a rising figure in the city's most feared crime family, his entire world changed in a single night of savage brutality. Tracked through the streets, trapped in a terrifying chase, and attacked in a way few could survive, his story is remembered as one of the most shocking moments in the history of Glasgow's gang wars.
After being cornered, he was then subjected to a horrific, violent attack.
It was just after midnight when Bonzo realized that he was being followed. Driving his Skoda Octavia towards his family home in Bishopbriggs, he noticed two sets of headlights sticking close behind him.
Was later dumped and set on fire to destroy any evidence. However, the bloodied machete used in the attack had been left on the back seat.
An Audi S3 and a Volkswagen Golf, both high-powered vehicles known in the criminal world for their speed and reliability, began to close in. What started as an ordinary drive home turned into a desperate attempt to escape, with speeds reaching 100 miles per hour as the cars tore through the darkened streets.
A high-speed chase erupted, tearing through the city, red lights ignored as two worlds collided. From Milton to the M8 at Port Dundas, the 100-mile-an-hour pursuit escalated until Bonzo crashed on a ramp.
For several miles, Bonzo tried to shake them, weaving through roads and hoping to lose the tail. But as he approached Port Dundas near the M8 motorway, the pursuit tightened. The Audi boxed him in from one side, while the Golf cut across his path from the other. In seconds, he was forced to a stop. There was no time to think, no way to escape. His enemies had him exactly where they wanted him.
Mobsters behind a wave of attacks and gangland rivals have struck again with yet another threat via video aimed at the Daniel clan. This clip shows two homes being set alight as the Hoods show no sign of relenting in their vicious campaign across Scotland.
The doors were wrenched open and masked figures descended upon him. Bonzo was pulled out into the cold night air, overwhelmed and surrounded. The attackers did not carry guns. Instead, they came armed with cleavers, machetes, and hammers. What followed was not just an assault, but a calculated attempt to leave him permanently broken. Every blow was delivered with precision, designed to maim, disfigure, and destroy. The violence was shocking even by Glasgow standards. Bonzo's face was slashed and beaten, his nose almost severed, and his body riddled with cuts and blunt force trauma. His injuries were so catastrophic that when the first police officers arrived, they initially believed he had been shot multiple times at close range. It was only later that investigators realized the damage had been caused entirely by blades and blunt instruments. When the attackers fled, they left Bonzo crumpled on the ground, bleeding heavily and barely alive. To them, it was a message as much as a killing. Glasgow's criminal world had always used violence as a language, and this was a statement written in blood. What they did not realize was that their chosen spot, so close to the city center, would ultimately save his life.
At Port Dundas, near Junction 16 of the M8, the Golf rammed his car with brutal force, sending it crashing into a pole. The impact left him unconscious, slumped over the wheel. What happened next was pure horror.
Paramedics arrived quickly and rushed him to Glasgow Royal Infirmary, just minutes away from the scene. His condition was so severe that few thought he would survive the journey. But luck was on his side. A highly skilled surgeon happened to be on duty, and the medical team fought for hours to repair the catastrophic damage. Without their expertise and the hospital's proximity, Stephen Daniel would almost certainly have died that night.
Later revelations suggested that Daniel's survival might have hinged on the attack occurring in proximity to a hospital and the fortuitous presence of a top-class surgeon on duty that fateful night. After enduring extensive hours of surgery aimed at reconstructing his face, Bonzo spent weeks in the hospital.
Against the odds, Bonzo pulled through. Yet the attack left him permanently scarred and disfigured. His face, once recognizable in the city's nightlife, was now a map of stitched wounds and deep scars. In the media, he was soon given a chilling new nickname, Glasgow's Scarface. To friends, it was a mark of survival. To rivals, it was proof that even the most powerful figures in the Daniels clan were not untouchable.
However, Bonzo presented a different narrative, vehemently denying any personal enemies or animosity between him and the Lions. It became evident that both the Lions and Daniels preferred to mete out their own justice through acts of violence.
To understand the significance of the attack, one must know who Bonzo was. Born into the infamous Daniel family, he was part of a dynasty that had dominated Glasgow's criminal scene for decades. Unlike some gangsters who thrived on chaos, Stephen had a reputation for being calculated, ambitious, and business-minded. He was involved in drug distribution networks, nightclub security, and protection rackets, positioning himself as both a leader and enforcer. His surname alone carried weight in the city.
His car was forcefully rammed by a Volkswagen Golf, sparking a frantic attempt to escape the imminent danger. Fearing for his life, Bonzo accelerated to speeds of up to 100 miles per hour, with an Audi S3 joining the pursuit and 2 cars tailing him.
Central to Bonzo's story is the bitter feud between the Daniels and the Lions. What began as territorial disputes in the early 2000s spiraled into a full-blown war. Shootings in broad daylight, petrol bomb attacks, and targeted assaults became part of daily life in Glasgow's most troubled neighborhoods. Families lived in fear, and even ordinary residents felt the ripple effects of the violence. For years, the two sides waged a campaign that resembled a private war, with casualties mounting on both sides.
The violent feud erupted last month and has seen several homes and businesses firebombed and shot at in nighttime attacks. Rival hoods initially began targeting associates of jailed cocaine kingpin Mark Richardson, who was caged in 2018 for his role in a £200 million super gang. The Edinburgh crime boss became a target for the gang.
The Daniel family often found themselves under siege. Their homes were targeted, cars torched, and associates attacked. The feud was so bitter that even relatives who were not directly involved in the crime sometimes found themselves drawn into the violence. For Bonzo, who was both visible and influential within the family, being a target was inevitable. Yet few could have predicted the sheer savagery of the attempt on his life.
That the defendants, all associated with the Lions, were specifically targeting individuals linked to the Daniel family. However, Bonzo presented a different narrative, vehemently denying any personal enemies or animosity between him and the Lions. It became evident that both the Lions and Daniels preferred to mete out their own justice through acts of violence, rather than relying on legal channels. Additionally, Bonzo refuted allegations of his family's involvement in organized crime.
In surviving the attack, Bonzo's reputation took on a new dimension. No longer simply a gangster, he became a living reminder of the feud's brutality. His scars were not just physical, but symbolic, a permanent mark of the war that defined his life. Among allies, he was admired for his resilience. Among enemies, his survival was a sign that the conflict was far from over. The attempt to silence him had instead made him one of the most recognizable figures in Scotland's gangland.
Driver Mohammed Khan, who stopped to help the stricken ex-taxi boss, said, "His face was in a mess, a total mess. His face was hanging off. You could see his nose bone. He couldn't speak. I thought he was going to die."
The exact motive for the ambush has never been officially confirmed. Some say it was retaliation for an earlier attack carried out by the Daniels. Others claim it was a calculated move by the Lions to destabilize the Daniel organization by removing one of its most influential leaders. Whatever the reason, the attack was carefully planned and ruthlessly executed, showing the level of organization and hatred that defined this feud.
During a drive-by shooting in Steps, just outside Glasgow, in 2017. Within weeks, the Lions had turned their attention to Bonzo, knowing the execution of the Kingpin could unravel the rival empire, a prime opportunity to take control of the drugs trade. After being left maimed by the gang and narrowly escaping alive, Bonzo was taken to the nearby Royal Infirmary.
Police launched a major investigation into the attack, but progress was slow. Witnesses were reluctant to talk, and those who might have had information feared deadly reprisals. Detectives described the atmosphere as one of silence, where violence was expected and cooperation with the police was seen as a death sentence. Despite arrests and questioning, no one was ever brought to justice for the attack on Bonzo. It became another unsolved crime in a city plagued by underworld vendettas. The near-fatal attack on Stephen Bonzo Daniel has become a defining chapter in Glasgow's gangland history. His survival was a miracle, but it also highlighted the brutality of the conflict tearing through the city. For some, his scars represent resilience in the face of overwhelming violence. For others, they are a reminder of the senseless cycle of bloodshed that continues to haunt Glasgow. In a world where no one is truly safe, Bonzo's story remains a symbol of both survival and the high price of life in Scotland's underworld.